The following evening, Burt's small cottage was filled with more people than it had seen in decades. True to his word, he prepared a feast, his special pot roast, Martha's recipe for apple pie, and all the fixings. Officer Charlie tried to decline the reward, but Burt insisted. "A promise is a promise," he said, his eyes twinkling. "Besides, it's been too long since this house heard laughter." Sebastian moved from person to person, accepting gentle pats and sneaked bits of pot roast, but he always returned to press against Burt's leg as if reassuring both of them that he was really home. The old man's hands slightly shook as he served his guests, but his smile was steady and true. Later that night, after everyone had gone home, Burt sat in his armchair with Sebastian curled up at his feet. The dog had been bathed and checked by a vet, who declared him dehydrated and hungry but otherwise unharmed. A miracle, they called it. But Burt knew better. It wasn't just a miracle that had brought Sebastian back to him. It was the kindness of a young police officer who took the time to care, the strength of a community that came together to help, and the resilient spirit of a dog who never gave up trying to come home. He reached down to scratch behind Sebastian's ears, and the dog looked up at him with those same trusting eyes that had peered out of a cardboard box 2 years ago. "You know," Burt said softly, "Martha always said that family finds each other, one way or another." Guess she was right, as usual. Sebastian's tail thumped against the floor in agreement, and Burt felt the last traces of loneliness melt away. His house was no longer filled with just silence and memories, it was now home to second chances, to love found and lost and found again, and to the quiet miracle of two hearts beating in perfect sync. That night, for the first time in 2 weeks, both man and dog slept peacefully, each knowing the other was exactly where they belonged. Write in the comments what would you have done and subscribe to our channel D-Damn Mix. "Sebastian," Burt whispered, still holding his dog close. "I thought I'd lost you forever, just like I lost them." His voice broke on the last word, and Officer Charlie knelt beside them, placing a gentle hand on Burt's shoulder. "Sir," Charlie said softly, "let's get you both home. Sebastian needs food and rest, and so do you." As Tom helped Burt to his feet, the old man turned to Charlie with tears still streaming down his weathered face. "Young man," he said, gripping Charlie's hand, "thank you so much. You have no idea what you've just returned to me." Charlie's eyes misted as he replied, "My grandmother, before she passed last year, she told me stories about her dog from when she was young. She'd say, 'Charlie, sometimes angels have 4 legs.' When I saw your missing posters, I kept thinking about her." "Angels have 4 legs," Burt repeated, looking down at Sebastian, who hadn't moved more than an inch from his side. "Martha used to say something similar. She'd tell our James that dogs are God's way of reminding us that love speaks without words." One of the firefighters approached, helmet in hand. "Mr. Burt, we should get Sebastian checked out by a vet. Would you like us to call someone?" "I know a vet who makes house calls," Tom interjected. "She's my daughter's friend. I'll give her a call right now." As they made their way back through the woods, an elderly man from the neighborhood spoke up. "Burt, you mentioned a home-cooked meal as a reward on your posters. Well, I'd say Officer Charlie here has earned it." Burt straightened his shoulders, some of his old dignity returning. "Indeed he has. And not just Charlie. All of you, you all came out here to help find my boy." His voice trembled as he looked at the gathered faces. "I've lived in this town for 63 years, most of them alone. I thought I was forgotten, just an old man with his dog. But today—" He paused to compose himself. "Nobody's forgotten, Mr. Burt," Charlie said firmly. "Nobody should be forgotten." "Then please," Burt said, addressing the crowd, "all of you come to dinner tomorrow. It might be a tight squeeze in my little cottage, but Martha always said a home expands to fit the love inside it." As they reached the edge of the woods, Sebastian stopped and looked up at Burt, his tail wagging slowly. Despite his ordeal, his eyes held the same devotion they'd shown since that first day Burt found him in the cardboard box. "You know," Burt said, his voice laced with emotion. "During these past 2 weeks, I kept thinking about that note in the box. Take care of him," it said. But the truth is, he's been taking care of me all along. Charlie smiled, helping Burt navigate a rough patch of ground. "Sometimes, Mr. Burt, that's exactly how family works." 2 weeks after Sebastian's disappearance, Burt's hope faded. His joints ached more than usual, perhaps from all the walking he'd done searching for Sebastian, or maybe from the weight of grief settling back into his bones. He sat in his armchair, looking at the empty dog bed in the corner, when his rotary phone rang. It was Officer Charlie, speaking quickly, excitement in his voice. "Mr. Burt? I'm off duty, but I was hiking in the woods near old Miller's property, and I heard barking coming from somewhere below the ground. There's an abandoned well out there. It's been partially covered with boards, but there's a gap. I think you should come out here." Burt's hands shook so badly he could barely grip his cane. He hurried to his neighbor Tom's house to ask if Tom could drive him to the woods. Tom agreed, and the two left in his car. When they arrived at the woods, they found Charlie waiting with ropes and flashlights. The young officer had already called the fire department but couldn't wait for them to arrive. "He's down there, Mr. Burt. I saw the white star-like patch on his chest when I shined my light down." Burt burst into tears, his fragile voice trembling as he called out to Sebastian. "My boy, are you all right down there? Can you hear me? Just give me a sign. Please." Woof. Woof. The familiar bark echoed from the well, lifting Burt's weary spirit and flooding his heart with hope. The next hour was a flurry of activity. The fire department arrived with proper equipment, and a young firefighter was carefully lowered into the dry, abandoned well. Word of the rescue spread quickly, and soon, people from across town gathered at the scene. The crowd held their breath as they heard movement below, and then a familiar bark echoed from the darkness. Burt fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. When they finally pulled Sebastian up, he was thin and muddy but very much alive. He'd likely been surviving on rainwater at the bottom of the well. The moment they set him down, he bolted straight to Burt, nearly knocking the old man over with the force of his love. Sebastian's tail wagged so hard it seemed to blur, and he covered Burt's face with frantic kisses, whimpering as if trying to tell his story all at once. "My boy," Burt sobbed, burying his face in Sebastian's dirty fur. "My precious, precious boy. I missed you. You scared me." The gathered crowd wiped away tears, watching the reunion unfold. An elderly woman stepped forward from the crowd, dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief. "I've been watching Mr. Burt walk past my house every day for the past 2 weeks," she said to no one in particular, her voice quivering. "Every evening, calling that dog's name until his voice gave out. I've never seen such devotion. Such love. Such compassion." But Sebastian's agitation only grew. When Burt let him out into their fenced yard as usual, the dog immediately ran to the far corner, standing alert and listening to the distant barking. Burt went inside to fix their lunch, and when he called Sebastian 15 minutes later, there was no response. The gate was ajar. Burt found a mail in the mailbox. But Sebastian was nowhere to be found. Had the postman left the gate open? Panic seized Burt's chest as he searched the yard, calling Sebastian's name with increasing desperation. Hours stretched into days. Burt barely ate or slept, spending endless hours on his porch, clutching Sebastian's worn leather collar. The nights were the worst. The silence that had once been his constant companion now felt like a gaping wound in his soul, raw and bleeding with every tick of the grandfather clock. Every creak of the floorboards made him look up, hoping to see Sebastian trotting in with that apologetic look dogs get when they know they've worried their humans. When his neighbor Tom rushed over with news of a dead dog on the highway, Burt felt the ground disappear beneath his feet, his heart shattering into 1,000 tiny pieces. The relief at discovering it wasn't Sebastian was immediately followed by guilt. He couldn't leave another creature unmourned, so he buried the unknown dog, saying a prayer for its family wherever they were. The missing posters he put up around town told their own story of love and loss. Missing, Sebastian. Beloved family member. Black and white dog with star-shaped patch on chest. Reward, a home-cooked meal and endless gratitude. Contact, Burt, door no. A 31, Maple Avenue, Oak Street. Some people smiled sympathetically at the modest offer, but Burt's famous pot roast was all he had to give. When nobody contacted him, Burt pushed open the heavy doors of the police station, clutching Sebastian's favorite chew toy in his trembling hands. He's my only family. The desk sergeant barely looked up from his computer as Burt explained his situation, his voice quavering with desperation. A few officers lounging nearby exchanged smirks. Sir, the sergeant sighed, we've got 3 ongoing missing persons cases, 2 armed robberies, and a hit and run to solve. We can't spare resources to look for a dog that probably just ran away. One of the officers chuckled. Maybe he found himself a girlfriend, he said, drawing snickers from his colleagues. Burt's shoulders slumped, each laugh feeling like a knife in his heart. He turned to leave, his cane scraping against the linoleum floor, when a gentle voice called out. Sir! Hold on. The dismissive laughter at the police station cut deep, but young Officer Charlie's kind eyes held understanding. Though he couldn't officially help, he promised to keep an eye out during his patrols and took Burt's phone number. My grandmother, he said quietly, she lived alone with her dog. I understand what this dog means to you, sir. I really do. The autumn wind rustled through the leaves as Burt shuffled along the familiar path to the church, his weathered cane tapping against the sidewalk. At 91, every step was deliberate, and every breath a reminder of the long life he'd lived, mostly alone. The morning fog hung low, wrapping the street in a pearl-gray blanket when a sound caught his attention. A squeaky whimper, barely audible, drifted from a rain-soaked cardboard box by the roadside. Burt's arthritic knees protested as he bent down to investigate. Inside, a tiny black and white puppy shivered, its eyes large and pleading. A crumpled note was taped to the box, "Take care of him." The old man's heart, hardened by decades of solitude after losing his wife Martha and their son James in that terrible car crash, softened at the sight of the helpless creature. Well, he whispered, I suppose the Lord works in mysterious ways. Burt gathered the puppy in his trembling hands, tucked it inside his coat, and returned home. The church could wait, this little soul needed him more. He named the puppy Sebastian. It was the name Martha had always said they'd give to their second child before fate had other plans. Something about the little fellow's gentle eyes reminded him of Martha's kindness, and the name just felt right. I hope you like me, little one, Burt said as the pup wagged his little tail. From that first day, Sebastian filled Burt's silent house with unexpected joy and hearty barks. Sebastian grew into a handsome dog with a distinctive white patch shaped like a star on his chest. He had a habit of bringing Burt his slippers every morning and sitting beside him during afternoon tea as if he knew exactly what the old man needed. For 2 years, they were inseparable. Sebastian became Burt's reason to wake up, venture outside, and smile again. The dog would wait by the window when Burt went to get groceries, his tail wagging so hard his whole body shook when the old man returned. Their evening walks became a neighborhood fixture, the stooped figure and his faithful companion, moving slowly but contentedly along the twilight streets. Then came that terrible Thursday in October. Sebastian had been acting restless all morning, his ears perking up at something only he could hear. The neighborhood strays were particularly vocal that day, their barks echoing from the direction of the old park by the high school. A female dog in heat, Burt would later learn, had drawn many of the local dogs to that area. Sebastian kept rushing to the window, whining softly, his tail twitching as he paced by the door. Burt wasn't too worried at first. Sebastian had always been well-behaved, never one to wander. Settle down, boy, Burt had said fondly, reaching for the leash. We'll go for our walk after lunch.